Asante sana, Paul. First, to break from protocol, I want to today acknowledge the great work of the Committee of Experts, our brother Paul Mwangi, our sister Mary Kakuvi, Anthony Alwoch, who is also a legal person, and by the latest Gazette notice of Joseph Boynet, a terror suspect, Khalif Khalifa. If you want to see how this government immerses itself in contradictions, a clown government, then you need to see some of the choices and the decisions they make. But I was told to speak on the issue of land. I don't know what I've heard since I was not born by 1963, but I have read sufficiently to realize that the struggle for Kenya's independence was based on dignity and land. And this dignity and land characterized our aspirations and has continued to characterize our aspirations. Today in Kenya, the most emotive issue that we have that faces us as a country, outside ethnicity, outside corruption, is land. And that's why everybody keeps saying that land is a time bomb. The Committee of Experts have made it very clear that one of the things they want to do is to restore the mandate of the National Land Commission, to ensure that the National Land Commission, I think what we did as a country is to try and address the constitutional question of land in our current constitution, but land is a political issue as much as it is a political issue, is a constitutional issue. So therefore we'll talk first and foremost broadly on what we intend to achieve in this constitution. This constitution had given a broad mandate to the National Land Commission to ensure that the National Land Commission is able to redress not only historical injustice, but be able to claim land that was lost through corruption, fraud, and unjust enrichment over the years. But I think since the Jubilee regime came into force, they have done everything possible to undermine the National Land Commission in its independence and in its capacity to be able to deliver on its constitutional mandate. And therefore our quest as a Kenyan people is to ensure that we continue to deliver on the promise of this new constitution. And I think this Okoa Kenya initiative, as previous speakers have said, is our best salvation to ensure that those aspirations of the Kenyan people captured on a diverse range of issues in the constitution are arbitrated and resolved with conclusively. What I decided to do today in Kenya, why Okoa Kenya has the greatest opportunity in terms of resolving the land issue, is because most of us in the Okoa Kenya initiative are dispassionate about land, because we are not landowners of that magnitude to be feudal landlords. Kwa hivyo, just to try and run through the issues I had, for a long time, areas like the coast particularly have felt extremely marginalized on the question of land. People in the coast have continued to suffer on what they call dispossession and disenfranchisement by people who were in previous governments. We have seen this kind of quest in other parts of the country. Others have been disenfranchised in one way or another through representation, through inequitable distribution of resources, through marginalization, through various forms of inequity that have created the kind of situation that that we have today. Mr. Chairman, those founders of this country had said, walisema wanataka kumondoa mkoloni kutoka taifa la Kenya. Wakasema kwamba wabeberu wamemiliki ardhi za Wakenya. But the intention of the constitution, Mr. Chairman, was not to remove the Lord Delameres and replace them with the Lord Kenyatas. It was to totally redistribute land to the people of Kenya in a manner that is equitable. So today, our current landlords, the lords who preside over massive tracts of land, are today the people who arbitrate over state power. And they have continued to monopolize state power for the preservation of their opportunities. And I will mention one before I sit. You remember after the post-election violence of 2007, the TJRC was constituted. The Truth, Justice and Reconciliation Commission was constituted. Many of us in Kenya have not been told why three commissioners of the TJRC Commission registered a dissenting opinion to the TJRC report. They registered a dissenting opinion to the TJRC report because the TJRC report had been doctored. And the chapter that had been doctored was to remove some of the names that had been mentioned in the land chapter to preserve their identity and their influence in Kenya. In fact, we are asking those commissioners who dissented to write their minority opinion so that it can be documented in the Kenyan histories who are the people who have created the land mess that we are in today. The TJRC report, Mr. Chairman, has been further doctored by Parliament. When President Uhuru talks about presenting or implementing a TJRC report, he is talking about a TJRC report that has been doctored by Parliament. Therefore, the only commission that we have hope in, the commission that we expect, will ask every hard question, including asking Uhuru Kenyatta and any other landlord to account for their wealth, is the National Land Commission. That's why we find it necessary to ensure that the National Land Commission is given the necessary mandate to be able to administer over all registers of public, private, and community land. And I think in the presentation that will come. Finally, the political question, because the constitutional question gives the mandate to the National Land Commission. The constitutional mandate is found in the Constitution. We as the people of Kenya can revert to the courts to ensure that land that was acquired through fraud reverts back to the people of Kenya. And there are so many lands that we know have been acquired through fraud, which time it is now to revert back to the people of Kenya. But what is the political question? The political question is to use the Okoa Kenya campaign to mobilize the Kenyan people towards a comprehensive land reform agenda that will ensure that which was taken away from the Kenyan people is restored equitably. If you have land where others are squatters, then we will have to compel you to either account for that land, its acquisition, or it must revert back to the people of Kenya. If you have land of questionable size, then we must know that it must revert back to the people of Kenya, or tell us the time, place, and the amount that was paid for you to get that land. So finally, as I said, as a Kenyan, I am a young Kenyan. I started by acknowledging the committee of experts. But I want to now direct my point to the three principles. Raila Odinga, Kalonzo Musyoka, and Moses Wetangula. In you, people have found hope in this country. I want to first and foremost commend you for the extraordinary effort you have put in to ensure that this Okoa Kenya campaign becomes a reality starting today. But as a young Kenyan, we must ensure that we replace government and structures of government in a fundamental way. And therefore, you must look for every opportunity to lock yourself in every room, in every house, in every office, to ensure that the three of you remain together so that we can capture this country. I shall be extremely unforgiving to the three of you if this coalition does not hold, and if we do not win the next election in a manner as to liberate this country 50 years on. So therefore, that's why this Okoa Kenya campaign, our three principles, is so important for us. The issues you have proposed to change in this country are the issues for 50 years that we have tried to vote for. Issues that were betrayed. Today, Kagia rests in poverty. Today, other political assassinations of Pio Gama Pinto remain unresolved. The issue of those who murdered these people were for issues around land and resources for this country. So we must take the ultimate sacrifice. We must take the bullet to ensure that we are able to fundamentally alter the nature and character of our government through this constitutional reform and through this Okoa Kenya. In you, we want to Okoa Kenya.